Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 14th annual Dr. Ida Scudder Humanitarian Oration. I, Suchita Chase from CMC's Department of General Surgery. I'm your host presenter for the evening. I warmly welcome our dignitaries and invite them to the stage. Our respected Honorary Dr. Ravi Kannan, representatives from our partners in USA Fellow CMC Foundation, Dr. Raj Narayan, Chair of the Board, Mr. John Reed, CEO and President of Board, our Director, Dr. Vikram Matthews, and our Principal, Dr. Solomon Satish Kumar. Please rise up for invocation, prayer, and college song.
Beauty for brokenness, hope for despair. Lord, in your suffering world, this is our prayer. Bread for the children, justice, joy, peace. Sunrise to sunset, your kingdom increase. Shelter for fragile lives, cures for their ills, work for the promised men, trade for their skills, love for the dispossessed, rise for the weak, voices to plead the cause of those who can speak. God of the poor, friend of the weak, give us compassion, we pray. Melt our cold hearts, let tears fall like rain. Come change our love from a spark to a flame. Light in our darkness, breathe on this flame, until your justice burns brightly again, until the nations learn of your ways, seek your salvation, and bring you their praise. God of the poor, friend of the weak, give us compassion, we pray. Melt our cold hearts, let tears fall like rain. Come change our love from a spark to a flame. God of the poor, friend of the weak, give us compassion, we pray. Melt our cold hearts, let tears fall like rain. Come change our love from a spark to a flame.
Let us bow heads in prayer. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His mercy endures forever. Gracious Lord, our loving Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for the gift of this day. Lord, we thank you for bringing us together for the 14th Dr. Ida Scudder Humanitarian Oration. O Lord, with grateful hearts, we acknowledge all that you have enabled Aunt Ida to contribute to the building of your kingdom. For the very first step of faith and many steps that followed to respond to your call. For the life of compassion, deep trust and faith in you, life of service and dedication for your kingdom. O Lord, we give you thanks for the establishment of Christian Medical College, Vellore, for making this institution to grow over the years as a witness to the healing ministry of Christ. Continue to make us a sanctuary of healing and hope to the nations of the world. May many more respond to your call in building of your kingdom. Bless our partnership with Vellore CMC Foundation USA. May we continue to grow in the works of your kingdom. We ask of your special blessing upon Dr. Ravi Kannan as Dr. Ravi delivers the oration this evening. May this be a time of encouragement and inspiration for all of us. Lord, bless us with your presence and make our time fruitful as we offer this prayer through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Girded round by the strong ancient mountains, stands the college we'll honor evermore. We thy children shall strive to reflect thee, thou bright glowing gem of Vellore. As your banner we wave proudly o'er us, and together we chorus your praise. In your blue we see loyalty's emblem, and truth in your silver's bright rays. 3 cheers for the silver and blue, India's star in the sky clear and true. Clouds of suffering will vanish forever. 3 cheers for the silver and blue. Not for fame, not for wealth, our endeavor, pride of race, not of greed be our boast. Each for all for each, just forever, united from coast unto coast. Strong to serve, strong to save the defenseless. May thy spirit inspire us anew. Not to gain, but to give be our motto. 3 cheers for the silver and blue. 3 cheers for the silver and blue. India's star in the sky clear and true. Clouds of suffering will vanish forever. 3 cheers for the silver and blue.
Please be seated. I invite Dr. Vikram Matthews, our director, to address the gathering.
Good evening. On behalf of the faculty, staff, and students of Christian Medical College, Vellore, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you all on this very special event of the 14th Annual Ida Scudder Humanitarian Oration, which is jointly hosted by CMC Vellore and the Vellore CMC Foundation USA. This year marks a special milestone, 125 years since the founding of CMC Vellore. And this oration seeks to perpetuate the legacy of our founder, Dr. Ida Scudder, by honoring exceptional individuals who exemplify her compassion, integrity, and character. It is my honor to welcome our chief guest, Dr. Ravi Kannan, Director of Cachar Cancer Hospital and Research Center, Silchar, Assam. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation and gracing this occasion. Dr. Ravi Kannan, as you all know, is not new to CMC Vellore. He is a recipient of numerous awards. Mainly among them is the Padma Shri in 2020 and the Ramon Magsaysay Award in 2023 for revolutionizing cancer treatment in Assam. I now invite our council chairperson, Mrs. Anuvinda Varki, to please come up onto the stage and welcome Dr. Ravi with a traditional panade. A renowned surgical oncologist, Dr. Kannan is widely respected for his tireless work in making cancer care accessible and affordable to the poor and underserved. I also welcome Mrs. Sita Lakshmi, whose quiet strength and compassion have been at the heart of Dr. Kannan's remarkable journey and the mission they share. I'm happy to welcome our friends who are attending the consultation conclave, who are also here today at the oration. A special welcome to our friends at the Vellore CMC Foundation in the USA who have joined us here, as well as those who have joined us online. We are delighted that the chairperson of the Vellore CMC board, Dr. Raj Narayan from the MBBS batch of 1969, and Mr. John Reel, CEO and president of the board, are present with us on stage. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Solomon Satish Kumar, the principal, other members of our administrative team, faculty, staff, and students. I would have loved to have seen more students who are present here. It is wonderful to see so many of our retired staff and alumni joining us today as well. It is indeed a proud and joyous moment for us at CMC to celebrate this event where we honor the legacy of Dr. Ida Scudder, our founder, especially in our 125th year. Once again, a warm welcome to you all.
Thank you, Dr. Vikram, for sharing your words. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. John Reel. John A. Reel is the president and CEO of the Vellore Christian Medical College Foundation in New York. He's a nonprofit leader with deep experience in fundraising and strategic resource management. Under his leadership, the foundation has earned top ratings for financial accountability and transparency. I invite John to introduce our partner, the Vellore CMC Foundation.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for that warm welcome. It truly is a profound pleasure to be here this evening to pay tribute to Aunt Ida on the 25th anniversary of the founding of CMC and the 14th celebration of the Dr. Ida Scudder Humanitarian Oration Award. I too would like to welcome and thank Dr. Ravi Kannan for joining us this evening, as well as his wife Sita, who is here with us as well. Thank you, Dr. Vikram Matthews, and to the council chair, Anuvinda Varki, for your continuous support and collaboration with us. on this particular project. If I may, I also want to thank Dr. Selbamani and Shika and the other members of the foundation who have worked tirelessly to make this evening a special evening for us and make it possible. I'd also like to extend a welcome to two members of our board, Dr. Raj Narayan, who traveled with me on this occasion, and also Dr. Susan Taylor, who is with us. In addition, we have two prominent members of the CMC Alumni Association from the United States. With us this evening is Dr. Pratibha Varki and Dr. Jane Van Godeker. Thank you for joining us this evening. So as all of you have probably seen on your seats when you arrived in, there's a beautiful pamphlet that was put together. In that pamphlet, there's a lovely description of the Vellore CMC Foundation and the history of our relationship with CMC. I encourage all of you to read that. What I'd rather do this evening is talk about two specific things about Ida Scudder that I think are very profound. One of them is really an indirect story about Ida Scudder, and it's actually about a woman who in the year 2019 was in an automobile accident in this area. And so she was admitted into the Vellore CMC hospital, severely injured. At the time, her daughter, who happens to live outside of New York City in the state of Connecticut, was contacted and was, they wanted to let her know that her mother was hospitalized here. And so she immediately travels to Vellore to be with her mother, arrives here and spends about the last 2 to 3 days of her mother's life by her side as she was being cared for here at CMC. And as you can imagine, as a daughter losing your mother, it was not really a very happy time. But she happened to be a medical journalist. And so on her flight back to the United States, she wrote an article, which was an article about her experience here at CMC Vellore. And the name of the article was The Humanization of Medicine. And the key point of her article was that no matter who she was in contact with here, whether it was her mother's doctors, the nurses who were on staff, the security guards at the doors, the people working in the cafeteria, that she was always treated with such extreme kindness. And the terminology that used, the phrase that she used in her article was that never before had she experienced the culture of empathy and compassion like she had here at CMC Vellore. So this is 2019, and this was the exact ethos of Ida Scudder when she was founding CMC Vellore. And so her ethos traveled through time, 50 years beyond the time of her death. And I think it really speaks very much towards, who Ida Scudder was and the providential existence of everything that goes on here at CMC. Truly amazing that the same characteristics of the organization from 1920 still exist here in the year 2020 and now 2025. The other thing I want to just share with you briefly is that there was something that Ida Scudder figured out while she was in her leadership role here, and it was really kind of a simple equation. She realized that if she had awarded a scholarship to a student in one entry year, and then a generation later offered a second scholarship to someone from that same family, that she would raise the entire family to out of poverty and into a different economic level. And to me, that was extraordinary because, again, we're thinking of what's going on 100 years ago, because there are great minds who are working at the United Nations in this century and coming finally to the same conclusion that Ida Scudder had realized 100 years ago. So, I mean, we're celebrating. This is a tribute to someone who is truly extraordinary. It's great to be here with all of you this evening. Thank you all for coming, and look forward to the great words that Dr. Ravi is going to be sharing with us. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your thoughtful introduction. We greatly value your contribution and continued support. It's my privilege to introduce Dr. Raj Narayan. Dr. Raj Kumar Narayan is a neurosurgeon and academic leader, currently serving as Senior Vice President and Executive Director of Neurosurgery Services at Northwell Health, Chair of Neurosurgery at Long Island Jewish Medical Center and North Shore University Hospital, and a Professor of Neurosurgery at the Donald and Barbara Zucker School of Medicine, Northwell. Dr. Raj belongs to the batch of 1969, a batch that holds the unique distinction of having 3 members serving as principals, Dr. Ravi Kurula, Dr. George Matthew, Dr. J.P. Mullial, and 3 members as chairpersons of the foundation, apart from Dr. Raj Narayan, Dr. Philip Nainan, and Honorine Ward. I invite Dr. Raj to read the citation for the 14th Annual Ida Scudder Humanitarian Oration.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Thank you, leadership of this esteemed institution. I know that you want to get to the meat of the matter, so my role is to read the citation with a few small edits. The Christian Medical College, Vellore, and the United States-based Vellore CMC Foundation partnered in 2012 to create the Ida S. Scudder Humanitarian Oration. Its purpose was to perpetuate the legacy of Dr. Ida Scudder by honoring exceptional individuals who exemplify Dr. Ida's compassion, integrity, and character. The humanitarian oration seeks to inspire others to try to emulate Dr. Scudder's dedication to the service of humanity. Dr. Ida Scudder, and many of you have heard this story several times before, but like the gospel, you have to keep hearing it. Dr. Ida Scudder came from a family of medical missionaries who hoped that she would follow in their footsteps. But Ida had little interest in being surrounded by disease, dreaming of a life of luxury. One night, however, at her parents' home here in the Vellore area, 3 men knocked on their door, one after another, asking for help for their wives who were in difficult labor. Young Ida was not a doctor at this point, and with no medical training, she was helpless and offered her father as a substitute. But the men did not want a man treating their wives. As you know, that night, all 3 women and babies did not survive. Through this tragedy, Dr. Ida found her calling. She returned to the US and was one of the first few doctors in the US who was a woman and allowed into medical school. She first went to medical school in Philadelphia and then transferred to Cornell for her 3rd and 4th year, completing her studies and then returning to be with her family in India. She started with a 1-room clinic at a house not very far from here, what subsequently became the Christian Counseling Center. And from these humble beginnings, this institution has grown into one of the best-known institutions in India, if not the world. Dr. Ida loved the following verses. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Her example of compassionate care and selfless service serves as the inspiration for each succeeding generation of care providers here at CMC, and I dare say, across the world through its alumni. With the 14th Dr. Ida S. Scudder Humanitarian Oration, we are honored to recognize Dr. Ravi Kannan for his extraordinary service and his unwavering commitment to making cancer care accessible to the most underserved. Trained as a surgical oncologist, Dr. Kannan rose to become the head of surgical oncology at the Adyar Cancer Institute in Chennai. Yet in 2006, a visit to the Cachar Cancer Hospital in Silchar, Assam, revealed to him the stark inequities in cancer treatment. Moved by the suffering of patients who lacked access to care, he made the incredible decision to leave behind a thriving practice in Chennai and relocate with his wife Sita and their daughter Andolika, who was only in the 4th grade at the time. I can imagine the conversations they must have had leading up to that momentous decision. Since then, Dr. Kannan and Geeta have transformed the landscape of cancer care in Assam. Combining surgical excellence with a vision for humane, community-centered healthcare, he has built innovative programs that not only provide treatment, but also dignity, compassion, and hope. His leadership has ensured that thousands of patients, many of them poor and marginalized, receive care that otherwise would be out of reach to them. For this extraordinary service, Dr. Kannan has been honored, as Dr. Vikram said a minute ago, with some of the highest recognitions, including the Padma Shri in 2020, the Ramon Magsaysay Award in 23, and prior to that, the Mahavir Award in 2013, each acknowledging his unrelenting commitment to bringing equity and compassion to cancer care. Dr. Kannan's journey embodies the spirit of Dr. Scudder's calling, choosing service over comfort and humanity over self-interest. In honoring Dr. Ravi Kannan with CMC's Dr. Ida Scudder Humanitarian Oration Award, we celebrate a physician whose life and work echo Dr. Scudder's legacy, compassion in action, courage in service, and a tireless dedication to the most vulnerable. I call upon Dr. Sita Kannan and Dr. Susan Taylor, members. Dr. Taylor is member of the Vellore CMC board in the US, to present Dr. Kannan with the citation. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to CMC Vellore, the director and staff, and to the Vellore CMC USA Foundation for giving me the privilege to deliver this oration today. Our best wishes and congratulations and prayers for the entire CMC family on their 125th anniversary. It is an honor because, I keep telling everybody, when your own colleagues, your peers, your elders, and your students recognize the value of what you do, it is an honor. And it is much more an honor because this oration commemorates the life of Dr. Ida Scudder. So thank you very much. Coming to CMC every time feels it's a very nice feeling because every time I come, I have so many friends here, and then I build new ones. And this morning I was talking to Tarun, saying, the shared thinking creates more friendships, and many of these friendships run very deep. And there is Vijay. Vijay was my classmate in medical college, and then there is Jennifer, and there is Reena, and there is Prabhu, and there are so many people. And there have been times, Reena, for example, I felt as if I had known her for a long time, only to both of us did not realize it when we met for the first time last year. That is when we realized that we are actually meeting for the first time. We had not met each other earlier. And so many of these friendships have that quality about them. And that speaks volumes of the type of people, the type of work that happens at CMC. Thank you very much for inviting Sita and me here today. I had the opportunity of attending part of the conclave this morning, and I had actually chosen to talk about where we are at an institution, only to realize this blends perfectly with what is happening here over the last few days and will happen for the next 2 days here. And so I want to talk about what is happening in my own institution. I work for a cancer center which is on the eastern side of Bangladesh. And like many places in the country, we have our own shares of issues in taking care of people. There is weather, there is geography, there is travel, there is ignorance, there is fear, there is poverty. I mean, different shades, different hues of the same problems will be seen across the country and in many parts of the world. And the story of the inception of the hospital is something very remarkable. In the 1980s and 90s, there was no cancer center in the region. The only center was in Guwahati, which is 350 kilometers from where we are. And it used to take, 15, 20. Even now, many parts of the Northeast, travel is a challenge. And so people would not be able to go there and stay for extended periods of time, and they would defer treatment, and many of them would die. And the incidence of cancer is high in the region for a variety of reasons. And so local people of the valley, farmers, tradesmen, teachers, lawyers, got together. A few of them were doctors and formed a cancer society. And then they went door to door seeking support. They conducted plays at street corners. They went and met leaders in the business community, in the politics, and they raised resources. The local MP from Silchar was an influential minister in the central government. He got them land, and they put up a hospital. And as Mr. Mihir Kaur, one of the founders of the organization, would often say that the hospital is a people's movement, and he would keep repeating it many times. And then in 1996, they actually put up a basic hospital, and And then their director visited many cancer centers to see how a cancer hospital has to be organized. And they kept the hospital alive by having people from Kolkata visit, people from keep general surgical work going. Dr. K.P. Chakravarti was a retired ophthalmologist. He retired as Joint Director of Health Services in Assam. After retiring, he picked up DVita for the first time, read through it, and trained himself to administer chemotherapy. So people from Kolkata or other parts of the country would go, come back with a prescription, and he would deliver the chemotherapy there. And then in 2007, when variety of reasons we landed there. And now, when I was preparing for this talk, I realized that that probably was the first time the society found itself at crossroads. They had built the hospital, they had ownership, they were passionate about delivering care, and then they found a doctor from the south of India, invited him to take over the hospital, to administer the hospital, and had the courage and faith to hand over that leadership to somebody they hardly knew. And that leap of faith, now in retrospect, many things have happened, but that was probably the first time. They may not have defined it as crossroads, but they were at crossroads, and they took a decision to hand over the hospital and say, now take care of what's happening. When we joined there, it was a small 23 staff, 20 beds, and it was a very small unit. And we realized that not even a quarter of patients who were coming to the hospital actually completed treatment. Most of them did not even come for a second visit. And over time, we realized a whole lot of barriers to accessing and accepting care, even though we were offering care. Because what I learned at the Cancer Institute in Chennai was low cost, no cost care, boarding, lodging. It will take care of everybody's needs. But that did not happen. And most patients would not even come back for a second visit. And over time, we put in place a series of measures. Vijay used to be in Karimganj those days, near Karim, about 100 kilometers from where we are. And many conversations with him, taught me a lot of things about taking care of poor people, and so we put in measures. The whole idea of branding ourselves as pro-poor is what I learned in those initial conversations with him. That when we treat poor people, every single time, 24/7, the pro-poor stance of the organization has to be proven. 10 out of 10 times, you have to do it. You cannot afford to miss, because they're like snails in a shell. The minute they will retreat and not come back to you. And so all the time we were cognizant, the way the hospital appears, the way we interact with patients, the way we have a policy. We took a decision long ago that we will not have dual charges. Often people would advise us, you charge more from people who can pay and use the money to support those who cannot. But what we realized is, what we understood is, initially we would think it is okay. Somebody will pay more, but somebody who pays more will demand more. They will want the senior doctor to see. They will want they will want no waiting list. And I, as the man who pays, is justified because he or she is paying more. I, as the treating doctor, will also justify it because his money is being used to treat somebody, but the tragedy will be when somebody who is not paying will also start accepting that they are paying more, so they deserve better care. And so, without any of us understanding, a system that starts out with the idea of supporting poor people will slowly become rich focused, and then we will start wondering, every patient will be looked at as, can this man pay? And so instead of looking at what somebody needs, we will start looking at what somebody is paying. And so we took that decision that we will not have differential charges, and to date we have not changed that. And then we put in place measures to prove to the community that we are actually pro-poor. And then conventionally, reducing the costs of care, avoiding double charges. They have a biopsy, they need a repeat biopsy, don't charge. They need a repeat endoscopy, don't charge. We put in place, reduce the costs of care as much as we could. And so we put in place a whole lot of measures to reduce the costs of care, avoiding multiple visits. Our whole target was, today, it functions even today, our thought was patient comes in, the same day he must have his blood biochemistry workup. The next day morning he will have his biopsy endoscopies. The biopsies are all reported on frozen section. And then he goes for his imaging, and by the time he comes the next day afternoon into the outpatient clinic, the diagnosis, the staging, and the treatment plan are ready. And then they will go back home and decide, and that's another story. But then our target is within 24, and even today, for a majority of patients, we are able to do this. The other thing is we also realize we have to reduce waiting times. There's no waiting time for radiation, no waiting time for chemotherapy, no waiting times for CT scans, for endoscopy. Surgery, unfortunately, we have waiting times, but we try and keep it as contained as possible. And that is how we brought in task shifting. So we don't have a radiologist to do biopsies from the lung and liver, so we trained a technologist. So all the CT-guided biopsy, image-guided biopsies are done by technologists. We don't have, so pathology, we resorted to frozen section. We don't have a ICU, critical care specialist for the ICU. So we teamed up with a team of physicians in Bangalore. We put these high-definition cameras in the ICU. We have a 15-bed, every bed is monitored 24/7 by a team of doctor, nurse sitting in Bangalore. The monitor readings are transcribed into a paper, and believe me, ICU, cloud ICU, we call it the cloud ICU. And the cloud ICU actually saves lives. There have been several occasions when we've been able to, save people's life. We had a patient, some abdominal surgery done. 2 days later, something went wrong, the arrhythmia, he was going to arrest. Before the cloud physician could warn the nurse on the ground, patient arrested, revived, 5-6 minutes later arrested again, revived again, connected to a ventilator. 5 days later on the ventilator, arrested a third time, revived, patient on follow-up doing very well. And there are many situations where we've actually managed to save lives. And then we also engage with the community on a very intense basis. And our community engagement, we learned how to work with available healthcare providers, with the ASHA in the community, with the local governments. And each of these, and most of these were project driven. And so we would start something as a project, and then once the project is over, we would find ways to sustain it. And so one story led to another story. We started with physical examination, we moved on to awareness, so the community programs keep evolving and involve villages and health blocks in all the districts around us. And then we expanded the community program to involve our home care workers, people who go for home care, for palliative care. We started involving them to create awareness, and the people who are in the community for early detection, we started involving them for palliative care. And so one department works in other ways to support the work of another department. And then both the palliative care team and the home care team talk about blood donation. Blood donations are used to be a very big problem, and so they go about promoting blood donations. And so many of these departments, our departments, work with each other. And then we started, one of my nurses actually came and asked me, you do a project, you publish the results, and then you walk out. Is that ethical? And it was a smack on my face, this is something our ethics committee should have asked. And so that led us to seeing how we can sustain our interventions in the community after the project funding dies. We looked at different models. We're trying to see what is happening in Kerala, the neighborhood networks for palliative, compassionate communities. We want to try and see if this can be developed so as a pilot, we are looking at it in one of the health blocks where we were working. And then we set up these satellite centers. And then along the way, as all of this was happening, we built friendships. We worked with a whole lot of organizations. We worked with individuals. We have a group of people who are now, we call the Friends of Cachar. They helped us put our values. They help train people. They help us. So a whole lot of people. And then the National Cancer Grid, one of the best things that happened in the country in the last 15 years in the field of cancer is creation of the National Cancer Grid. And along with the grid, we work for human resource generation. We did a traveling school of pathology where we took a team of pathologists to different cities to train local pathologists for pathology reporting and synoptic reporting. And then, we benefited from the group negotiation to reduce costs of care. During COVID, the CMC Vellore was very much part of the online discussions that happened along with the National Cancer Grid. Many things happened, and then quality assurance. And so we have the EQUIP program, Enhanced Quality, Improved Palliative Care, which is one of the flagships programs of the National Cancer Grid. And so that helps us implement quality improvement programs. But now what I realize is, we did all of this organically. There's a problem, address it. We needed to go into the community. There was no food in for patients. We started a kitchen. So all of this happened organically. But what now, when I talk to people, I realize, without realizing, we were actually branding ourselves as pro-poor every single time. We were working to reduce the costs of care whenever it was possible. We were trying to fast forward diagnosis and workup and not keep people waiting in the OPDs and for treatment. We were using technology very extensively. We were trying to decentralize care, to democratize access to care by setting up these satellites and providing home visits, and we were continuously engaging with the community. And as part of this, the organization got recognized, people spoke about us, invited us. It added to our responsibilities, and we started looking at sustaining the value systems of the organization and creating a leadership transition process. And that is when, for the first time about 2 years ago, when I look back, I realized initial times when we used to go out and talk like this, we were all very uppity. So many things are happening. We are doing so much of good. And then once we started looking at, how are we going to sustain ourselves, all our conversations started going around, how are we going to sustain the values when we hand over leadership? How are we going to hand over leadership? And these issues started bothering us. And so we sat down, wrote down what our core values will be. We said compassion, evidence-based care, teamwork, a pro-poor attitude, frugal innovation, and an attitude of gratitude. These we said are our core values, of which we said compassion is the most important value. And then we started looking, how are we going to sustain ourselves in terms of human resources, in terms of social relevance, in terms of the environment, and in terms of economic sustainability. And then we looked at different departments, and then we were wondering, that over time, are our values weakening? And we were wondering, if younger people who join, who have not seen the struggle of older times, are the reason why our values weaken. Are people who have stayed on in the organization for a long time, slowly, I've been there for a long time, so instead of coming in the morning at 8 o'clock, I will come at 9 o'clock. There is a gradual drift. Is that the reason? And then, more importantly, I, as the leader of the organization, say, oh, so-and-so is stepping out of line, but I don't want to ruffle feathers because too much is at stake. I overlook this, and that is how I ended up speaking somewhere on our midlife crisis. And then Tarun, who is a professor of medicine here, wrote an email to me, suggesting that we do a relevance framework. He wrote a very nice email, and for the first time I thought, oh, there is something called relevance framework. What is it that we should do? And then as we started thinking about it, we realized we were not facing a crisis. We were actually at crossroads. And being at crossroads is a deliberate decision. We chose to be at crossroads because we will make decisions that will impact on the future, how the organization shapes, like you were talking of 2035, how the organization will look like in the next 10, 15 years. And so then we thought, crossroads for whom? So it is crossroads for patients because the milieu is changing. There's so much of technology. There is PMJY. There are sources of support. Patients are able to go out of Silchar for treatment. But then they go finish all the money that is available to them and then come back for care. But then it is a decision they have to make. They don't realize when they make that decision that there are pros and cons to that decision. Is it for the hospital? Are we facing a mission drift and a mission shift? The daily, tensions between compassion and efficiency. We say that anybody who comes to the hospital must be seen the same day. But what happens, patients come from far off, and by the time they land up in the hospital, it is 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And suddenly, 2 o'clock onwards, we'll see a large number of patients, and sometimes OPDs will continue till 10 and 11 in the night. Is that fair? Is that how do we handle this? Is there and then for our own governing society, the members are changing, there are changing aspirations. For the community around us, they're seeing their expectations from the hospital have risen. Especially after the pandemic, there's a lot of change in expectations in the community. And nationwide, there is a lot of change. We're looking at, becoming a hub for medical tourism, and but then we want our own national identity is stoked. We want to have greater national identity. But then are we doing the right thing? See, many of the people who come from, at least I know people who come from Bangladesh to our area, they're all as poor or worse than us. And then many of the people who come from Africa to India, it's not that people from the US or Canada or Australia land up here for treatment. If people from Africa come, many of those African countries are much worse off than us. And so by them coming and we, charging them for our services, are we as a nation, being equitable? Are we as a nation promoting wellness across the globe? So these are all questions, and then while I want to focus on the hospital and the governing society, we cannot look at ourselves in silos. What happens with patients, what happens in community, what are national policies, all of that, we have to engage with all of them when we talk of crossroads. And so we sat down and said, is there between the market forces, there are market forces, there is corporatization. See, like all those street corner shops that used to be in my father's village, we used to have a whole lot of what we used to call nadar kadai, those small shops selling. Now with the coming of all these malls, and all these shops have disappeared. They've all been driven into oblivion. The whole of Pundamali High Road in Chennai used to have so many clinics, and those clinics were providing very good quality, low cost care. But with the availability now of corporate hospitals, with multi-specialty hospitals, all these clinics have gone, or they're all shut down one by one. And all of this has actually resulted in a rising costs of care. And so even in our own hospital, numbers have risen, incomes have risen, but the salaries have also risen, the discounts that we have to offer patients have risen, and so it's a challenge. And then in order to treat, so we say over the last 15 years, we've not really changed what we fixed as the cost of care in 2009 or 10 continues to this day. We have not revised it over the years. And so our thought is we must make up by having increasing numbers of patients. If we did an audit, even today, when we started, we were treating 25% of our patients. Today, nearly 70% of our patients complete treatment. But even now, there are 30% who don't complete treatment. And my argument often in the organization is we must make sure that 30% also complete treatment, because that while we take care of them, while we serve them, we will also earn from different sources, and that will add to our income in the organization that we can use to pay salaries and do many things. But then it's not as simple as that. If we have more patients, we need more staff. You cannot expect the same staff to stretch themselves to, and so it is a tightrope walk. And then what happens if you look at PMJY reimbursements for telecobalt radiation, they will give some 40,000. For 3D CRT, they will give 60,000 or 70,000. For IMRT, they will give 1.2 or 1.3 lakhs. For IGRT, they will give 1.5. And so there is a tendency to say everybody will get IGRT. Is that justified? So these are questions that we have to answer. And then when you have more volumes, there is always a question of care versus compassion. You can show compassion if you sit down and listen to the patient, if you talk to the patient and the family. Jilly Byrne is a palliative care nurse from the UK who comes to visit us now and then, and she would admonish, Ravi Kannan, you must have gappe. Gappe means, chit-chat, gup-shup with patients. You must have gappe with patients. Where is the gappe? If you're seeing 50 patients in 9-10 hours, you can have time to talk to patients. But it's the same in an OPD. On an average, we see about 150 patients in a day. Where is the time to spend time? So it's a question of care versus compassion. And then you use EBM, evidence-based medicine, and say these are the problems. So patient comes, default disease, okay, you chemo radiation, go away. It is all right. We are treating the patient scientifically correct manner. But then there is no empathy, there is no hand-holding, there is no, and then we also lose the opportunity to listen to our own people. Everybody is busy doing what they are doing. And then it is important that you talk to your own colleagues, your own nurses, your own technicians, and talk about what stress is happening, what is happening. There is no room to talk and the minute time is over, everybody wants to go home, everybody is tired. And so where will all this lead us? And so the price, that we pay for increasing services is, there was a time when we were on rounds. This was 2007 or 2008. And we didn't have a canteen in the hospital at that time. We saw a small child eating puffed rice soaked in water with salt and long green chilies. And Sumit, who was with us, he's a medical oncologist, he's now in Delhi, he said, what is this happening? And we said, tomorrow we start a kitchen. Overnight, we were able to start the kitchen. But now with 500 staff, with so many, we are now in 3-4 campuses trying to expand. Now we are not able to do that in an organic, everything. Now we have to have all these strategic terms. I've never heard of strategic income expenditure assessment based decisions. And no, but these are realities. What I saw here also, these are realities. You were probably 10 times our size. And then there is risk on depending on philanthropy, so we realize 70-80% of our income comes from PMJY. What happens if the government runs out of money and they say no more PMJY? Where will we go? Where will patients go? We have increased salaries, we've increased services, we've increased staff. We cannot shut them down and send them all home one fine day. And then the speed with which we are able to change has reduced. Now we have to think twice, think about what is happening. And then there is always this looming thing of how are we going to have leadership transition happening. Our own governing, we are governed by the society that established us, and there are changing contours, and the initial members who were passionate about the hospital, many of them have passed away. Some of them are older, are not in a condition to contribute. Some of them have left or to do other things. Some of them have moved to be with their children in other cities. And so the contour of the society has changed. And then initially, the initial 10, 15, 20 years, they were very much involved in the services that was happening and the growth that was happening. And then there comes recognition. And in all this recognition, the hospital gets recognized, the staff get recognized, but the society members who actually put in all the effort are not recognized. And that causes it will cause unhappiness. And then there is this discussion about stabilizing the organization first before going on into establishing satellite centers and satellite clinics and all that. Yes, both sides have merit in it, but then the need is we need to decentralize, we need to go out, but also the need is we have to stabilize. And so these decisions have to be made. And then the community, of course, that is raising expectations. They want more from the hospital. And then as an organization, are we going to engage with the community? Are we going to tell them how to decide wisely? Are we going to spend time and effort and energy in going out and telling them about cancer diagnosis, about the resources available, about what will happen if they go elsewhere, how they go, and they should not come. Many times it will happen, they'll take 20 fractions of radiation and come back and say, you give us the remaining 15. How will that happen? So much gets messed up. So are we going to spend time doing all of that? And then that is as far as our own stability, our own sustenance goes. And then are we continuing to be relevant with changing times? And so we looked at what all needs to be relevant. This is what Tarun set us upon. So what all needs to be relevant? So are we purpose relevant? Is there alignment between the needs in the community? And so we start treating patients. And then now we realize that when we treat poor patients, when we treat them, even if you give low cost, they're all daily wage earners. And so what happens? The first thing that happens is their kids drop out of school. Initial years, it used to drive me up the wall. How can kids drop out of school? But then they will drop out of school because somebody has to earn. And so it is foolish to say kids should not. Now we are saying, okay, they will drop out of school, they will earn, but how do we keep their education alive? If we don't pay attention to education, we've ruined the kids' lives. By actually treating somebody, we have created another mouth to feed, because 80% of them have not gone back to work. And so we need to find an alternate way of livelihood. We need to find a way of how the kids, so when we provide health care, especially in lower social, we have to look at education, we have to look at livelihood, we have to look at energy, we have to look at so many things. All these development goals are all actually very intimately linked. And as we go on, if we don't pay it, if we just focus on curing the patient and sending home, we're actually probably doing a lot more of disservice than we realize. And then are we getting the community involved? Do we have, so I had a discussion with my colleagues, should we have patients or their family members in our scientific advisory committee and the ethics board? And universally everybody said no, they will not. So then I was talking to Pramesh some time ago, and so I asked Pramesh, in TMS, do you have patient representatives on the board? He said, yes, we have representatives, but what they contribute actually is, and so now we are now thinking, now I have a new doctor who's heading our clinical research secretariat, Arun. So I'm hoping that now we will start training patients and their families to participate in research advisory boards and ethics boards, to ask the relevant questions. So are we going to do that? Otherwise we are just being irrelevant in recruiting them onto our boards just for the sake of doing it. Then the other thing, that this is something that happens on a daily basis in the hospital. So like cream skimming, people who have access to the PMJY, they have the Aadhaar card, they have a PMJY card, they come and present, we say okay, and then we are happy because we have made sure that they get the support that they need. But then there is this lady who is a widow, whose husband was a Jawan in the army. She gets a small amount of pension, but because she is from there, she does not have a PMJY card. And so her children are doing some job, there's nobody to support. Now she does not have a PMJY card, so she is not eligible for PMJY. She does not have 50% survival chance, so she is not eligible for Indian Cancer Society. So this is a lady who has nothing. And so in a busy OPD, often such people will be left out. We will lose out on them. Patients come from Bangladesh, okay, they are very poor. They don't have any card, they don't have any, and there are people in our own country also, people who don't have any identification papers, they don't have election card, they don't have anything. Now when they come to the hospital, it is easy for the social worker to say, Tum jao, go get the identity card and come, go get the card and come. And then they will go and they will not come back till we suddenly realize what has happened. And so, do we have a mechanism that will actually make sure that people who need the support are being supported? Or are we just taking the easy way out and supporting all those who have the necessary documents? You support, that is all right, it is important we do that. But what about the more important people, the people who actually need our support are the people who don't have any of these ID cards and whatever those things, the paraphernalia that facilitates access to care. And then the more important thing is, are we auditing it regularly? Are we trying to see how many such patients came in and how many of them we supposed? And do we have a mechanism to 24/7 prioritize the last mile first? So are we doing this? And then quality and responsiveness, are we service relevant? So all the quality parameters of safety, equity, efficiency, timeliness, are they all integrated in our system? And is the service compassionate? Are we actually teaching compassion to our, compassion is what it is, you feel for the patient, you feel as if you are suffering what the individual is suffering. And then you want to do something to alleviate that suffering. But the most important thing is, for doing something to alleviate that suffering, you don't have any expectations in return. You do it without any expectation of anything in return. But are we talking about this with our younger colleagues? Are we listening to patient reported? Somebody told me this morning, they said patient reported experiences, and I wisely said prompts, and he said no, patient reported experience. So are we looking at patient reported experience, and are we quickly in an agile fashion addressing the feed forward? Have we put quality in the DNA of the organization? I have a place We started with one team and then for the quality improvement programs. And today, every year, we have 13, 14 teams participating. We want to become a quality hub. We were looking at putting up a quality improvement center for quality assurance, quality improvement. And now we have actually started looking at quality improvement outside the equip cycles. But how do we integrate it into what is happening? And the good thing about our QI programs are many of them are led by nurses and technologists. Sarita, our lead nurse, is an amazing, amazing person, and and many of the projects actually talk of patient waiting times, patient happiness, but the quality of food, weight loss, and so some things are happening. Are we relevant as far as the future goes? You know, when the mission to Mars went, around that time, the train came to Silchar. And then a whole generation had never seen a train there, because from the time the meter gauge was stopped and the broad gauge came, it was more than a decade and a half. And so the whole town came out to the railway station to see the broad gauge arrive. People came with agarbatti and candles and diya and all that. And a media person actually juxtaposed the Mars mission and the train arriving in Silchar and said, what? But this is important. You see, while we focus on providing the daily bread and butter, we also have to look at the future. We cannot just say, because we are not providing the train here, we cannot go to Mars. We have to do both. So you know, like you know, current day investing in molecular diagnostics, research into basic sciences, robotics, all of these are important. But then, are we the people who are going to do the research in all this? Are we? So these are questions that we have to ask ourselves to be future relevant. Does our research have to focus only on what is contextual to us today, or are we also looking at something that will be useful in the years to come? So these are questions that we have to answer. And then structural relevance, very important. So as an organization, this morning also, without money, nothing will happen. So we had several visitors who went to meet Dr. Shanta. Several of my colleagues, Dr. Shanta used to be the director of the Cancer Institute in Chennai. Very well-known person, and so they went and spent time with her. And then they asked her, you know, she said, oh, anything? And they asked her, Madam, you worked for 60 years in cancer. What do you think is are the important things to create an organization? So they expected some deep philosophical answer. Dr. Shanta looked at them and said, money, in one word. And you know, so true, you know, because without money we can't do anything. And so we have to see how we will tighten our revenue streams, how we will tighten our government. And board training, this is something the board that governs us, you know, many times people ask me, why are you bothered about the governing body? But then for example, I've put in 20 years. If you look at many of my colleagues, 50, 60 of us would have put in so many years together, we would have put in 600 years. That is not create mechanisms for sustain, be able to make sure that what we worked for is, people will change, ideas will change, values will change. But all of that has to happen so to get our governing board trained is very important. And we run a leadership training program in the organization called HEALING. It's an acronym for many things there. And so we're trying to see if we can create this leadership training program. We're now doing it for all the mid-level doctors. We want to do it for other people in the leadership. And then we want to conduct this for young adults and adolescents in schools and colleges around us. And then the other important thing is, like Mihir Babu said, you know, we are a people's organization. Do we continue to be the people's organization? So many times, you know, even today when I'm in an OPD, somebody will come and say, oh, we were here when the organization was started and my father gave cement for this hospital, or my father came and did the rods for this. And so a lot of ownership is there. So are we doing anything to cultivate that ownership? It is very important that we continue to create and enlarge all these transformational circles of goodness. You know, there's so much goodness around us. If only we would learn to harness all of it, get everybody to link hands, it will be a huge circle. That is how we have grown. And then across all these domains and all these things, you know, it's important that we remember how we started and how we grow. grew. And to perpetuate that, creating stories, telling stories about all this, very important. Stories of patients, stories of doctors, stories about KP sir, stories. And then we must understand our motivations. Why are we doing this? What is it that pushes us to do what we are doing, despite the fact that there are not many rewards? And then we must learn to see what our resources are and accept them. Now, instead of, grumbling and, we have to, this is what we have. With this, what is the best that we can do? Then we must see what our weak links are, are we, sometimes when money is important, when my colleague Kapil will come and say, there is this patient who has a large tumor and he needs double free flap and then we will ask him, so what do you think his survival will be? He has massive neck nodes, 20%, but we have to treat him. And so for me to sit down and spend time explaining to Kapil that it is important to treat him, but he has a 20% chance of being a long-term survivor. Many times before the wound heals and the radiation is completed, he will come back with cutaneous recurrences. And we should not spend money on him in his own way. He's right. We should do it for every single patient. But then I, as an administrator, sometimes have to hold him back and say, no, let us not spend money. These are all decisions that we have to make. And then constantly, many of us keep thinking, what is happening? Are we doing right? How is it that we can do it differently? And then some things, we must measure the impact these are things I am also learning. And then value-driven leadership. How do we promote value-driven leadership? I think very important to build partnerships across the spectrum. What you can do as a group of friends, one can never do alone. And while we may be working in different centers and different cities and different countries, we can still work together to help each other do better in our own spheres of work. And then I think it is very important that we build movements. We build institutions, all right, but it is more important to build a movement that has institution and extra institutional partners that will do this. See, remember, relevance and excellence is not a one-time statistic, but it is a continuous negotiation between what our mission is and what the context is. When the context changes, some of these decisions will change. And so many of these decisions are highly contextual. And then the people who are in the picture, the people, not only patients and their family members, but also our own colleagues, the staff in the hospital, and the larger community around us. And so it's a tricky game that we play. But then the important thing is always to keep the sick person in focus, and priority is always the larger good of the sick person over everything else. I cannot conclude any presentation without talking about Dr. Shanta and Dr. Krishnamurthy. We are all created unequal. This is something I picked up at the Mayo Clinic. I was telling Dr. Pratibha that I read somewhere that we are all created unequal, and this was a deliberate thing by God. He created us. He gave some of us extra wealth, some of us extra money, some of us extra skills, and to others, He gave nothing. And I think this was done in the hope that we will use what little we need for ourselves, and the vast extra that we have, we will use it in trust to use for people who do not have these gifts. And Dr. Shanta, it was always everything for every patient. And Dr. Krishnamurthy, I always hear his voice intoning, Ravi Kannan, when the patient does not have the resources for his or her care, it is the duty of the treating physician to find them. And so as doctors, as healthcare workers, we are clinicians, we are researchers, we are teachers, but the most important thing is we are all change makers. We can all change the way we treat sickness and sick people around us. Thank you very much. This is thank you in the different languages spoken in the hospital where I work. There is Mizo, and there's Bangla, and there's Khasi, and there is Naga, and Hindi, and Tamil. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. I think that applause said it all. Thank you, Dr. Ravi, for sharing your inspiring life journey with us. Dr. Ida Scudder saw a health need and responded to the call, and you have done exactly that. And Dr. Ida Scudder had a special concern for the poor and the marginalized, and you have done exactly that. And thank you for being a great role model. Thank you for being an agent of transformation. On behalf of all of us, I invite our director, Dr. Vikram Matthews, to present a memento on behalf of all of us to Dr. Ravi Kannan. As we celebrate 125 years, I think there's nobody better than Dr. Ravi Kannan to deliver the oration.
See, I really think what I'm doing is just the same as what you're all doing. You're all doing it here in different places. I've met people from Odisha and from Purulia and from many places, and I'm just one like many of you here. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. You can be seated. We thank God for your simplicity. Also, I want to really thank Mrs. Sita Lakshmi, Dr. Ravi Kannan's wife. Let's give her a big hand, because I'm sure nothing of this would have happened without her loving support. She also deserves a standing ovation. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for coming and being with us. What a great couple. We also thank Ms. Anuvinda Varki for being here with us, our council chairperson, for continuing to guide us and for encouraging us through many occasions. Also, our friends from the Velo CMC Foundation, Dr. Raj Narayanan, batch of 1969. It was great to stand next to him and see him sing our college song with Gutso. He keeps our college flag flying high. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Susan Taylor, for being with us, and Mr. John Rail. Thank you very much. We value the support given by the Velo CMC Foundation. We value your friendship. This is one of the many things that you do, and we thank God for all of you. We also are thankful to the Oration Committee, the Board of Directors, and members of the Velo CMC Foundation. I believe many of you have joined us virtually. Thank you for your support. Also, I thank all of you who've come here, especially the guests and the speakers of the conclave, faculty and students. I think it's been a wonderful night. Also, I think several of Ravi's friends, all those close to Velo, Bangalore, Chennai, all have landed up. Thank you for being here with us. I also want to thank our director, Dr. Vikram Matthews, the organizing team, Shika, Shebi, and the development office. I think they need a big hand, along with the principal's office and the director's office. Thank you for putting this together every year. May I request everyone to stand up as the choir leads us in the sevenfold Amen, and then we will sing the national anthem.
Bless you and keep you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. And give you peace. And give you peace. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. And be gracious unto you, and be gracious. The Lord be gracious, gracious unto you. Amen. Amen. Janagana Mana Adhinayaka Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhyata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravida Utkala Banga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchala Jaladi Taranga Tab Shubha Name Jahe Tab Shubha Shisha Mane Gahe Tab Jaya Gata Janagana Mangala Dayaka Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Jaya He Jaya He Jaya He Jaya 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 He.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.